everybody, and welcome once again to another episode of Everything They Don't Want You to Know. I'm your host, Jesse Blaze Snyder. I took the past 2 weeks off. Basically, I blew my own mind. I've been on the psychedelic mind expansion train for a long time, and over the past few months, I quit smoking marijuana regularly as like a medicine, and now I smoke like once or twice a week. And when I smoke, I like cross a major threshold, and I basically have the equivalent of ayahuasca experiences. And I have been making short work of lots of really frightening concepts that I have to wrap my head around because of it's being presented to me and concepts of the universe, and I have literally like broken my mind over the past few weeks, and I've not been sure what to say or what to talk about because my whole brain and way of looking at the universe has just kind of flipped upside down. And I mean, it's not really like to say that like everything I said yesterday is wrong, but fundamentally the way that I've been shown reality has shifted enough that it's just making me look at everything again and sort of reevaluate, and again, not like from a standpoint of like, oh, was I all wrong about this, but sort of just like much deeper levels to things, and like whether or not there are aspects of life that I'm ignoring or missing out on, or I don't know. Like I'm not exactly sure what place to live from anymore. Things that I did and thought, tended to revolve around meaning, things being meaningful, and really coming to the hard conclusion that I did that essentially everything in the universe is just thoughts messing around with thoughts making things up. Just sort of like fully amasticizing. What's the word? Fully absorbing this information into my existence. So I've been a bit thrown off, and I haven't been sure what to talk about. But then a simple one seemed to pop into my head this morning, which was Bigfoot. Good old Bigfoot. And I think it's a great one because it's like, it's some light work. And it's more than just Bigfoot. The world of cryptozoology is a very funny one. I'm not going to like be sitting here with documented proof of blah, 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 as I sometimes would do, where I'll script an episode because there's a lot of facts and stuff, and I want to make sure all the facts are handed to you. I'm just doing this guy off the cuff because I know a lot about Bigfoot and these things. It'll be up to you to dig into it deeper, and this is a fun subject to dig into, Bigfoot and related type things like Birdman and stuff like that. We will get into some things like aliens and stuff, which aren't always the most fun to deal with. But I'm going to talk to you about that and sort of make you feel better maybe about some of these aliens and the bullshit that you hear sometimes. But I don't know. Let's just kind of go backwards into my history a little bit, because as longtime listeners know, Jesse Blaze Snyder, major skeptic. I was agnostic. I didn't believe in anything. I literally owned a skeptic's dictionary, which had Bigfoot and Birdman and all these other things that I'm talking about today in it. And I felt really good about that for a very long time, that being a skeptic. I think I explained a long time ago that because of Steve Jobs, who talked about having done LSD and that being a big part of his invention of Apple computers. He did that in college. And I thought that that was a very profound statement that, like he said, I wouldn't have made Apple if not for an LSD trip in college. So I went and I did magic mushrooms after being straight edge for 28 years of my life. And at 29 years old, I did a, sort of shamanic large dose of psilocybin mushrooms. And it really blew my doors off. There was so much subtlety to the experience in terms of especially the oneness, that we are all one, that everything is like just connected to everything else. On some level, I could just feel reality outside of my body, all as one thing. And this is a lesson, this oneness of all the things. This is the main lesson that you will learn over and over again working with psychedelic plant medicine. Just everything is one, everything is one, everything is one. Beyond the oneness, there's like almost a bit of a everything's just stacked on top of each other kind of thing. Everything's loaded into one perspective that is adjusted by distance and adjusted by time and is adjusted by perception and lights and shadows. But like that on some level, every molecule is literally existing on top of one another. And this is another level of psychedelic, expansion where you'll see that. You'll see different configurations of the molecules within reality that are all sort of simultaneous and occurring at once, because the way you and I are dealing with reality and all the molecules and stuff is a very specific kind of linear thing. But there are these other ways that are going on all the time, like sort of dimensions just outside of your perception, where you are functioning in some major capacity because this reality is all one in a really confounding, complicated, interesting way. I've had a lot of these experiences, but it's like I would be a fool to try to explain it. As to say, reality is one and layered. With all those layers in mind, all of a sudden, at a certain point, depending on what you're listening to and where you're getting your ideas about other worldly beings, Bigfoots and aliens and whatever else, there really does start to seem to be plenty of plausibility that, like, I could just cut a little sliver into space and space would open up, and on the other side of that space would be more space where other things are going on. That everything is basically frequency, that we're sitting here in a certain frequency band, and that teleportation and other things like that would actually be about setting yourself to a different frequency where you would want to go to a different place. When you start getting into thoughts like this of different frequency, traveling you to different places, and if you explore the UFO phenomenon, you'll see a lot of this idea of getting in and out of phase, something vibrating at a certain frequency and disappearing, or suddenly appearing. Well, that sounds a lot like what we're talking about, the idea that different frequencies will bring you to different places, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, what I'm saying here essentially is no proof of Bigfoot, no proof of Oingo Boingo or any of these other fucking cryptids or aliens or whatever else. I'm proving plausibility. It is a plausible concept. And you may not be here yet, but I am well past here, and you will eventually get here if you keep exploring. All that is possible is, on some level, anything that we can imagine is happening. Simply because we've imagined it means that the God mind can imagine it. The higher minds above us can imagine it. If they can imagine it, then it's going to get executed in some way. Maybe those beings are further away. Maybe they look a little different. Maybe some of the details are a little different. But the thrust, the basic energy of things like the Thundercats fighting evil in space, well, you may go on to find that there are some historic, ancient history of the Lyrans fighting against other beings, perhaps some more lizard-like beings, back in our distant past, and that these stories that there are people that you can go hear them from, usually people who channel, but they exist in a lot of different places in various ways. Like the Thundercats is a channeled creation. Somebody had an idea. Granted, maybe at the time it was a good time for that idea because there was some other animal-inspired type beings or some other powerful cosmic beings or space beings or science fiction beings, and all of a sudden somebody gets in their head, what if we had some like cat-like beings? And it just so happens that they are now pulling forth what is mythology from the planet's history. And this sounds, on some level, sounds crazy. Except once you realize that the matrix is just like a probability matrix. It's average things out, and like these are approximately the best bodies to enjoy and interact with all of the various things that we might make up. Dirt and grass and bushes and fences and houses and cars and cups and lawns and I just said lawns already. And I'm outside. And shovels and but every single one of these things is a concept. We're living in a conceptual universe. So before you think too hard about, is this real or is that real? Or it doesn't matter. It is real on some level. There's Bigfoot somewhere. Is there Bigfoots here and stuff? We'll talk about a little bit of these things and what are the possibilities and stuff. But you really need to shift your mind into of course, that's possible because I understand it, and anything that I understand could be understood by God, and anything understood by God could then already be made into something that's functionally represented within this creation somewhere. Is it nearby me? I don't know. There seems to be some people who are saying that it is. You get me? Right? Like when we think about it like that, we're not thinking about it in terms of is that even possible? And blah, blah, blah. Don't let your ideas about evolution or whatever it might be get in the way of possibility. Because trust me when I say human beings, we are powerful enough to possibility ourselves right out of the possibilities. If we don't believe in the possibilities, we can end all the possibilities. It's our belief that things are possible that open doors to them. There's a line in the Santa Claus. It's like, believing's not seeing, seeing is believing. No, sorry. Seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing. And I can't believe that it is true. It sounded to me a little bit, like something a kid would say. But it's actually true when you're living in a mind. You're in a giant mind. What you perceive, what you're open to. There's a lot of factors to what may come your way. Now, I'll say another important thing before I move into talking about any of this stuff in detail. One of the big things I realized, a big piece of arrogance that I had and was holding on to, that I needed to let go in order to open up the door for things like this, was I believed that some people were crazy. I now have a much better perspective, and honestly, I should write this down and do this as next week's episode of the show, because it really is it's a very good episode for the show. That no one is crazy. Crazy in quotes. That there's so many mental illnesses and whatnot, and I can go break down every single one of them and explain to you how that person is not crazy at all. They're just perceiving reality in a way that you and I aren't currently perceiving it. Receiving reality is actually a good word for it too. They're tuning into reality in a different way, and it's freaking them out, and making them seem crazy or crazed compared to you, because they're experiencing things that you're not experiencing. So I'm going to write that down, and I think next week's episode I will be able to make up. I'll do a script for that one. Like I'll like really go into a ton of the different, like I'll cover them all. Cover them all, the different like mental illnesses, and how many of them are fucking possession, and so many other things that are happening in our reality, where we're perceiving things in a different way, and when we try to describe it to the people around us, they're like, "You're crazy," but it's not. It's not that. We're just perceiving some things that aren't there. However, I used to be very much that guy's crazy, so I was always looking for practical evidence. Do you have a photograph? Show me. Prove it to me. Realizing that was ultimately really disrespectful to humanity. And that I was like holding my own discernment above every single other person's discernment on planet Earth. Like, that's so fucked up. One of the first things that I dug into, besides the Bigfoot thing, and I'll talk about this in a second, was aliens, which there aren't any aliens. There are beings that have existed before us. The name aliens, like they're from far away, and they're not from so far away. They're from way closer than we imagine. They're terrestrial. They're beings that are just unlike us. However, I was just blown away by how many stories there were. Thousands and thousands. I've watched at least probably 2,000 at this point, individual stories, people speaking at length about their independent, first-hand accounts with aliens one way or another. And, I remember I was really hung up on like hypnosis, and people are making things up and all these things. And could there be a little bit of that going on? Yeah, sure, maybe. Is it causing the situation? No. The situation's being caused by the fact that there are actual aliens, lots of them. Tons of different species of terrestrial beings that we basically don't know about, that are outside of our reality. It's like if there's another dimension that's overlaid in the United States, and we go through a portal and we enter into that dimension, we're still basically in the United States. We're in a different octave, we're in a different dimension within the space that we were in, right? So, what that taught me was that I was a fucking asshole. And honestly, you're probably an asshole too. If you're sitting there going, my Aunt Debbie told me once she saw a giant, but fuck her, she's an idiot sometimes. No, you're being a jerk. Imagine if you had that experience, and then you went around and you told some people about it, and they looked at you like you were an idiot because like you were believing one of these things. They weren't believing it. They experienced it. They experienced it, and they tried to tell you, and then you went, meh, 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 meh. It's really messed up. And I mean, what a world. Like, if we just think about that, right? If we think about the idea that we've been living in a world where something really crazy like that, like an alien abduction or a Bigfoot encounter would happen, and then you go back to town and you tell the people what happened, and they don't believe you, and they ostracize you. And like, this is just Bigfoot and aliens and stuff. Let's say it could be about fucking anything. They don't believe you and they ostracize you. They don't believe you and they ostracize you. Going all around the planet. What a fucked up planet this is. Crazy things happen. We go to tell the tribe, and the tribe's like, you moron, get out of here. Like, what the fuck? No good. No good. And then you, under those circumstances, it's very easy to realize why it's been so hard to fucking figure out if there's a Bigfoot or frickin' aliens or any of this shit. It's hard. It's hard to talk to these people. They want to shun you. They want to get the pitchforks and the torches. Get him. It's Frankenstein. He looks like a monster. I'm telling you. I mean, just being a person like me, I'm like the most loving, sweet. I care about people. I love people. I just want life to be good for everybody. I am. But like, I'll try to go introduce some of these concepts to people online, and they will talk to me or look at me or whatever like I am a shit starter, a fucker around her. Like, I'm not. I love you. Let's just all get on the same page and fix this place and fucking fix ourselves and get it all together. But these ideas are so challenging to most people that you bring them out and it's just like, it's too scary. So when I did my big mushroom experience and I was like, oh my God, everything's one. And I think it's a mind. And I think the possibilities of what this mind can do are infinite. I went back in to look at every single thing my skeptical mind had ever looked at prior. And one of the first things that I looked at was Bigfoot. Because I just had an intellectual thought that was, well, if Bigfoot is real, then every Native American tribe in America should have stories about him because they lived in the woods and, case closed or case open based on whether or not the Native American tribes had a lot of Bigfoot stories. And, I'm very, always been very drawn to Native American culture. Now I know that I think maybe I wouldn't necessarily say like my immediate previous life necessarily, but my previous incarnation with my mom and my dad and my brothers and my sisters, that is like sort of like most related to this life. I was in like another life with them, except I was a girl. I was their older sister. And those two lives, because of I'm with that same group of people again in this life, they feel very like important, like tied together. And I've always had a lot of respect and interest in Native American culture. There's a lot of my spirituality that has like kind of come from Native American culture because I studied it when I was an atheist and when I was an agnostic. Because on lots of levels I was drawn to it, even though I didn't necessarily believe in anything like too spiritual or anything. But then when like I woke up, then it became, well, maybe I need to take a look at Native American culture again because like I always felt attached to it. I always felt like it belonged to me on some level. And I know for all you cultural appropriators out there, you don't like hearing that. But this is the thing where energy is born and reborn and dies and rises and up and down. And there is no cultural appropriation. There's just energy and what the energy has learned previously and what the energy might learn next time and what the energy is growing into and everything else. So when I opened, I was very much like, my Native American culture switch kind of flipped back on because I went, I've read about this in a positive way, but just like, isn't this fun in the past? Like, I should go back and read about some of these things, like, take it seriously, which I eventually did. And because of that, I said Native American culture will be my beginning for getting into some of these conspiracies. And when I approached it that way, I was immediately met with, 100 names for Bigfoot, because each culture had their own name for him. Not to mention dozens and dozens of others, from little people and giants and and dogmen and birdmen, and really just like the list goes on. I have like a little bit of a list, and I'll kind of talk to you about some of them, to kind of go through a bit of this. But, one of the things with Bigfoot in particular is that Bigfoot's called Bigfoot in one area of the world, and then in another area of the world, Bigfoot's called the Yeti, or he's called Sasquatch, or he's called the skunk ape. There's a shitload of different terms that all basically describe the same creature. But by them being named differently, it makes it seem like there's all these different creatures when really there's not. So I put together a list earlier. So Bigfoot, Sasquatch, skunk ape, the Boggy Creek beast, or you call it the the folk monster, Fouke. This is in Arkansas. The skunk apes in Florida. The Wendigo, which can sometimes be interchangeable. The Wendigo in Marvel Comics, he kind of looks Bigfootish. He's like a white Bigfoot, a Yeti. But the Wendigo can also be can be talked about in terms of like with the Skinwalker. A lot of these things are a little bit mixable. I never wanted the Skinwalker to be real because Skinwalker on a lot of levels was really creepy. But I do think all of these things are real on some level. What does the Skinwalker look like and stuff? There's a lot of different bits with the Skinwalker. Looking into Skinwalker Ranch is an interesting bit. Honestly, at the end of the day, none of these things are as scary as they sound from far away because it's all the consciousness working itself out in weird ways. When you are a mind that doesn't understand anything, doesn't know anything, well, then you're just a mouse that could be eaten by the cat. But when you open your mind to these things and get above them, you become a being that isn't a prey to these sort of beasts, or doesn't need to be. I mean, unless you don't want to go put yourself there. But the Wendigo, the Skinwalker, it's been talked about basically people who have cannibalized their own people. And like, some terrible sort of karma that has been put upon them to become this terrible, bloodthirsty being. Dogman is a dog version of Bigfoot. He shows up all over the planet. There are tons of cultures that have interacted with dogmen beings. Most of these things are thought to or considered to be now living underground or living in mountains and stuff like that. But there are mountains like Mount Shasta and stuff all over planet Earth that have tons of sightings of UFOs and related things to that. People have heard of UFOs, but a lot of people haven't heard of what are they called? UFO, unidentified flying object. USOs, unidentified submersible objects, flying saucers that have come straight out of the ocean. There are large swaths of the ocean that we haven't uncovered, explored. There's so much ocean. The ocean is so vast, and there are little areas in the ocean that have been scanned, where they'll find like some big black blob that could easily be a fucking city, a dome city underneath the water and whatnot. The amount of holes in the story, like the amount of places where possibility exists for things outside of what you've been told can exist, for them to exist, it's just they're there. And we are way more academics living in cities reading books about things than we are going out on adventures into the world to explore things. And I know it's like, I saw this movie and I saw that movie, and it doesn't cover this place. It's not enough. And especially when you get into frequency and you start talking about Bigfoots and things like green orbs that became Bigfoots, which are like stories that people will tell you about Bigfoots. I've watched probably 1,000 Bigfoot stories, and I mean, some of them maybe might have sounded made up. Most of them, the people were terrified, freaked out. There's so many interesting Bigfoot stories. Stories of Bigfoots throwing rocks and wood at people in their cabins, trying to get them to get out of the area that they are in, making noises. There's a couple incredible I think it's a skinwalker. Two stories from the military. There's a lot of military bases that are in the middle of nowhere in the woods, and it's a collective consciousness that we're living in. So when our consciousness come together, and they don't really believe in Bigfoots and things like that, dimensional beings, all this shit, it kind of it creates a shield of what we believe in these cities. But on the edge of the cities, on the edge of the towns where there are multiple brains who are all kind of agreed on the same thing, there's less people and less agreement. And in between all those places are where a Bigfoot will walk right out of nowhere. And there are stories of people who literally just a portal opened up and a Bigfoot showed up. A bunch of green dots appeared, and then all of a sudden there was a few Bigfoots. And granted, there's videos of these things. It's like you can't really find a lot of these. There are some decent videos of Bigfoot. I mean, I would say there's a couple hundred decent videos of Bigfoot. Where you're like, that looks like that could be a Bigfoot, and he's fucking far away, and he's like some big ape creature. And it was shot in America. I mean, like that's one of the big things, because there's apes, ape-like creatures like all over the fucking planet. I mean, granted, they are relegated mostly to certain regions in Africa, but seeing an ape somewhere, or an ape-like being somewhere where he's not supposed to be, is saying something. And there's plenty of videos that you can go find looking at those things. But yeah, Dogman is plenty of stories of him, especially going back into ancient cultures interacting with dog-faced creatures. Look that up. And this is Michigan, where the Dogman is known to appear. So, does that mean that there could be a civilization of dogmen living in Michigan, underground in Michigan? I think it could mean that. Who knows what level of technology these beings have gone to? Who knows, what cataclysms might have led them to live how? Maybe they're hiding in a mountain. They started living there, And I mean, we're a bunch of warring apes on planet Earth. I mean, like, who wants to deal with us? Of course, you got like the Yeti, who's in the Himalayan mountains. Yowie, which is the Australian Bigfoot. The orange pendek. Oh, sorry, he's the orang pendek, smaller bipedal ape, possibly living Homo floresiensis. He's in Indonesia. In Mongolia, there's the Almes. They're hairy hominid, often tied to Neanderthal survival theories. There's the Barmanau in Pakistan, Afghanistan. Wild man cryptid from remote mountain folklore. In Afghanistan or Pakistan, I don't know, one of the Middle Eastern areas, there is a story of the military killing a giant there. There was a giant. It killed a military team. They sent in a bigger military team. This military team ended up shooting it a lot, taking it out. There's 3 different stories of, there's no pictures or anything, but there's stories from one of the guys who fucking killed the thing, one of the guys who transported the thing's giant body, and one of the doctors who did an autopsy on it. Very, famous amongst people who look at stuff like this. I mean, it's very compelling. These are 3 different people who, just were handing things off to each other, and this story came out. The military definitely seems to have a little bit of they would like people to have a better idea about what is possible in the universe, and they seem to be letting their military guys speak. I told you the Skinwalker stories. I mean, Skinwalker, for lack of a better word. There is a scary story. Well, the 2 of them were both pretty scary. I'm just going to shrink it down. But there was this military base deep in the woods. It was a training facility. There was the main entrance, and then deep in the wilderness, in like the back of, deeper into the woods, there's another entrance. And there was a late night guard there, and a person showed up at the window late at night at like 2 a.m. wearing American military clothing, but like it wasn't recent. It was old clothes. And the guy was really weird. And I'm not going to remember the wholeness of this story, but basically he like asked to be invited in. And the guy just kind of was like, this is like highly irregular kind of thing, and went to go like call back to base, and the dude disappeared. Stories of beings trying to lure people away, trying to get people to let them in, and then devouring them. And those are stories that you hear in mythology and cultures all across the planet. The story of the predators, these invisible beings who only hunt people with weapons. that is culturally significant all across the planet Earth. The predators are probably a real being. The Rakshasa stories are like that. I had a list of like the different cultures that had stories of things like the Rakshasas, whatever, but they're all essentially a kind of honorable warrior race that's out there looking for fights, looking to fight the best warriors, and doesn't fight the people who, can't defend themselves or doesn't have weapons. That is not insignificant that there are stories like that all over the planet. There are way more Bigfoot stories. There are way more alien stories of all varieties, and we'll get more into aliens in just a second. But it's really just the possibilities, guys. They're endless, and cool, interesting. Makes the planet a lot more of a wonderful place, magical place. I got, let's see, some reptilian and kind of dinosaur-like creatures. You've got Makoli Mbembe, who's in the Congo basin. Makoli Mbembe. So there are places all around the earth where we have brought tribes picture books with pictures of animals to ask them about different types of animals. Have you seen this? Do you know about this? And these people will look at an elephant or a giraffe and be like, whoa, what's that? Like, never seen anything like that before, And then we'll show them a picture. Oop, bless me. Sorry. We'll show them a picture of a dinosaur. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, it's Joe. Yeah, Joe sucks. You stay away from Joe. Don't want to go near Joe. Joe, yeah, he'll bite you or he'll ram you. He's angry. He's an angry animal. Stay away from him. And they go, no, this is an extinct dinosaur. And they go, dinosaur? Nah, that's just Joe. He's over there, that way. Keep going that way. You'll find Joe. And in these places where, Joe exists, are these like mosquito-ridden, malaria-ridden, just like the bugs, and like they are so inhospitable, and like mud as opposed to dirt and water, like something in the middle that's like not exactly easy to traverse, and thick wilderness and whatever else. That's where Makoli Mbembe lives, and he is one of those beings. In the Congo, there are two dinosaurs that the local tribes say exist there. One of them is a Triceratops type dinosaur, and the other one is what do you call it? The long neck type dinosaurs. They'll point to pictures of him. They have names of these dinosaurs, and certain sort of area. If you go that way, you might run into him, and he'll flip over your boat, and he's killed some people, it's that simple, man. I mean, I've had stories that there's so many different things. I think one of the guys that goes on Joe Rogan, was kind of a famous guest, hasn't gone on there a bunch, but he had famously just went off to Congo to try to find this dinosaur at a certain point in time, and ended up getting lost there for a few years. But the reality that these things exist, what's stopping you from believing it exists? I just told you that there are tribes people living right now who will point to a picture and say, oh yeah, I've seen him. His name's Bob. He's over there. So what's your problem? This is what I'm saying, right? If we're really thinking about it, the moment there are people saying something is possible, the respectful thing is to go, all right, well then I assume it is. And that will put us in the reality where it is, and where we might be able to experience it as well. Granted, somebody could make something up. Us believing that it's possible would put us in the reality where it's possible. That doesn't harm us. But us believing things aren't possible, that limits the reality that we can live in. It puts us into a nice little box, into a cube, which is where all of the people who rule you would like you to be, in a nice little box. I say, fuck that box. Keep expanding the box. So let's see, who else we got right? Lizard Man of Scape or Swamp, South Carolina. humanoid reptile with glowing eyes. There's a lot of lizard-type beings that have been seen and talked about over there. Plenty of people tell you the world is run by lizard people. I think on some level that may be true. These beings that like deep underground and can go underground, and they can bring gold up to the surface and bribe kings and bribe people and give them money and say, do this, sacrifice we want a few dozen babies every year and we'll give you lots of gold. And then shitty people do this, and they make these deals, and then there we go. We're living in this terrible world. The chupacabra, he's an odd one, but originally more lizard-like before the goat-killing canine version emerged. Yeah, there's like the original chupacabra. The chupacabra is one that like isn't a consistent thing. The consistent thing is that like there are vampire-type like bites on the ankles or whatever, or weird bites drained of blood, I think, on cattle and stuff in like Mexico. Is where the chupacabra does his thing. But a lot of the reports of what people are seeing are very different, which makes me think the chupacabra is multiple things. Multiple people have seen multiple weird things, and it all has become the chupacabra. And again, what did I just name? Like 10 different Bigfoots? They're all fucking Bigfoots, but they're all different names. And then, of course, you got the Loch Ness Monster and, like, lake monsters, like Oingo Poingo and stuff. Classic deep water cryptids. Usually these guys are tie-ins. What did I write? Sonar suppression, modern satellite tech. Oh, yeah. I mean, we've been searching for these things a lot, but there's just water. There's so easy to fucking hide underwater, man. And there's underwater caves, and there's just so much stuff that could be going on. So with something that's like a plesiosaur, which would be like a fin dinosaur with a long neck, there's a lot of people who think that something like that might exist. I'm sure it does somewhere. I have like sort of my doubts about whether or not they're floating around in Loch Ness right now. And that maybe there are other things that are explaining this. At the same time, stranger things are happened, and this could be a dimensional being on some level. I don't know. The fact that it persists as much as it does, the fact that a lore has come to be built around it, that means there's growing energy within the mind of God, that there's something here on some level, and it's being observed. So, like that part of me is hard to let it die. But the skeptical part of me, I don't see tons of fucking evidence for those things. But yeah, it's possible. And probably somewhere, one of these lakes probably has one. All of them? I don't know. Maybe. A couple more. Let's see. The Pope Lick Monster, Goat Man. Goat-human hybrid with satanic overtones, urban legend, or Dumb's experiment escapee. I don't remember that particular story of like the goat man. I mean, like again, it gets into dog men and cat men, and they're all possible. In the alien world, they talk about mantis aliens who are like sort of neutral. They were working with the good guy aliens. Now they were working with the bad guy aliens. Now they're working with the good guy aliens because the time equinoxes have changed. Energy on Earth has changed, and now they're changing things. Okay. But, I mean, what I'm saying is, essentially, any animal face you can imagine, there's probably an alien like that. And then more. The Jersey Devil, who's kind of like a flying kangaroo-goat hybrid. Yeah, I mean, the Jersey Devil seems possible. But, again, there's different reports of the Jersey Devil that seem like reports of different things. Bat Squatch, seen near Mount St. Helens, a winged ape cryptid, classic off-limits area monster kind of thing, where this thing is seen, but it's a bat Sasquatch on some level. Let's see, the Rake Pale Crawlers. I don't know about those ones. I didn't even finish reading this list. I just glanced at it. The Skinwalker we talked about, Navajo cryptid lore. It's a shapeshifter with ties to cryptid phenomenon and like I said, government restricted land. The last Skinwalker documentary was really cool. There's some interesting shit going on. And then Thunderbirds, which are giant winged beasts. There's eyewitness accounts, a lot of them, of bird-like creatures. The size of airplanes. Really like big things, even things like like it like flying alongside their car, for a while, and them like seeing it, right there next to them. And often seen in Bigfoot sighting areas. There is an amazing documentary called The Bridgewater Triangle. It's about an area, I think, that includes a little bit of New York, but in the above New York region, a triangular area where they have Bigfoot sightings, Birdman sightings, alien abductions, Dogman sightings. I mean, just like everything that could possibly be seen is seen over there. Ghosts, all in this vicinity. And a lot of this seems to occur, according to Native American way of thinking, when bodies of water, one from one direction, another from another direction, they all like come and they hit into each other. The moment you get into like three bodies of water mixing and like all their energy hitting, apparently it like softens the doors between realities. It makes it possible for things from other dimensions to come through into our reality. There's a lot of reading that you can do on that. The Bridgewater Triangle documentary is an excellent documentary to watch on these things, just because it just shows you just one thing to like talk about these things just one at a time. You're like, there's one Bigfoot sighting in Ohio last week. There's one in Utah. There's one. Put them all together, like the Bigfoot, Birdman, ghost sightings, like every sort of weird thing that's happening. Put it all in one place, and all of a sudden it seems like, wow, like the world is magical. Crazy shit's happening all the time, and that is what's happening. But we're so compartmentalized in our thinking, the way like we're just tend to be observing these things, one thing at a time. We hear about this one thing, we hear about that one thing. We get into ghosts, we start thinking about ghosts. We get into Bigfoot, we start thinking about Bigfoot. But it's the smorgasbord. So to look at the Bridgewater Triangle and see all of these things happening in one location, and there are plenty of locations kind of like that, to a certain degree, but you got to discover them for yourself, because you'll just notice, you'll be like, oh, Birdman, didn't they have a Bigfoot sighting over there too? Oh yeah, there was. Oh, wasn't there like an alien abduction? Isn't that where they had the lights and that blah 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 blah? Like there's something that you'll hear about, and then all of a sudden that same area. Because areas, and a lot of it has to do with the waters, but some of it has to do with rocks. Places like Sedona are crazy magical in all sorts of weird ways. When you cumulatively put them all together, it makes it that much more, because it's like 1,000 Bigfoot sightings gives credibility to Bigfoot. 100 different types of weird, unseen, there and then they're gone monster type sightings lends credibility to the idea that there could be dimensions that these beings are crossing in between, and that there might be mechanisms within our reality that are allowing large bipedal intelligent creatures to disappear on a whim if they so choose to. So, all of this is sort of cumulative stuff, just open yourself up to the possibility and then go take a look. And then you go, oh, wow, look at how many possibilities there are. Okay, look at all these other possibilities. Like, it starts to become a growing, inevitable thing. Yes, inevitably, there are Sasquatches. And it's funny, I've never seen a Bigfoot yet, even though I always want to. Although I did have an interaction, seemingly, with a Sasquatch. When I was in North Carolina, I felt a presence at the edge of my family's property there late at night, and I felt it like I sometimes feel beings that want to talk to me, like it was sort of like waiting to speak to me, and its energy felt like what I've come to view the Sasquatch as, which are like some sort of like elemental nature spirits on some level that are like interacting with the wilderness in a powerful and important way. And I started talking to this energy, and she did say that she was a Sasquatch. I said Bigfoot, and she basically told me that they didn't really like that word. And I said, "Oh, you don't like being called a Bigfoot?" And she said, "What did she say?" She said something to the effect of that it was a little bit patronizing. I don't know if patronizing was the right word, but it was like, it just seemed silly. It was, I'm a Bigfoot. What does that mean? And the Sasquatch meant something. So she basically said that, she could feel me. She could feel some of the energy that I was wrestling with, and like that she was sent by the spirit world to help me move some of the energy that I had been collecting. And so I went upstairs into my bedroom and I meditated, connecting with this being. And it was unlike any other meditation I'd ever had before. I don't remember all the details. It's sort of like subtle and hard to describe something that I'd never experienced before. But like just something to the energy and the connection. I was definitely connected to something, and it was definitely different than any connection I'd ever had. So I choose to believe that I did indeed connect to some lady Bigfoot in North Carolina, which was an interesting experience. But, I haven't seen any of these guys yet. However, the mounting evidence is just fucking too great to ignore. Is there a Bigfoot? Definitely. Are there aliens? Well, again, like I was saying, they're not aliens. They're terrestrial. They're one with you. Or they're just more beings in this spectrum of reality that we have here. And yes, there are. If you go to Russia, or if you lived in Russia, or if you just do a search on the internet, you could find fucking Russia's Big Book of Aliens. And essentially, they had a notebook that was being spread around, passed around amongst the population of Russia for describing all of the aliens that anybody had encountered in Russia. And there's a lot of people living in the mountains and living wherever. Well, suffice to say, there are, I think like maybe 7 kind of like standard alien type beings that people were encountering very regularly. But beyond that, there was hundreds that people were occasionally running into. 1 or 2 stories of this one, 1 or 2 stories of this one, 1 story of this one, 1 story of this one. And some of them were fucking scary, man. Woo! Some of them were frightening. Granted, at the end of the day, I will guide you all. Don't be afraid of these things. They are you in another form. As you become cognizant of that, when they become cognizant of that, there's like lesser consciousness that to a certain degree you're allowed to enjoy, eat your food and whatever else, because it doesn't realize what it is. It doesn't know that it's anything. It's just sort of like a thought into reality and thought out of reality, and it doesn't exist with a soul. But the moment you connect to your soul and you anchor yourself into being a souled being, a higher conscious being, they're not allowed to fuck with you on those levels anymore. So be sovereign and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid that the possibilities are so endless. They really are. They are so endless. I have interacted with elemental beings. I've interacted with a cloud that was alive, that I could see sacred geometry in it. And different beings of consciousness that I've interacted with, and UFOs that I've seen, really fucking crazy UFOs. If this shit was from the government, I'm like, they've really got some explaining to do. I've talked about some of these things in other episodes. If you haven't listened to every episode of this show, honestly, every episode of this show is important. Go back, listen. I try not to repeat myself too much, but I give a lot of information. As much, if I think I'm capable of delivering information, I don't write a script. If I think that I'd be better if I had a script and then I don't have to worry about anything and I just sit there and I have all my information preloaded, that's when I script. And then sometimes in between I'll do an outline, just so I can write down as many pieces that I want to get to. But I try not to repeat myself too much. So seriously, go back, watch previous episodes of the show. I've talked about things in relation to this before. I've mentioned Bigfoot before, but haven't gotten into it so deeply like this. We are not alone. You are not alone. The world is an interesting place. Far more interesting than I ever gave it credit for. I look forward to one day seeing some of these creatures, meeting some of these creatures, visiting Shambhala beneath the earth. I look forward to the possibilities expanding here on planet Earth and me having the opportunity to interact with beings that yesterday were only in my wildest dreams and comics and films and TV. But they're out there. Bigfoots and fairies and goblins and little people and big people, and it's all on the table. Godzillas and King Kongs, Titans. Once you finally open the door to, oh, wait a second, are these stories not stories? These are all based in truth? When you really, really open your mind, the Titans, giant beings. And why do we need these giant beings? Well, it's not a need. Their perspective's all fucked up. Time and space. They couldn't stop growing. They became some sort of fundamental, elemental aspect of our reality, growing in ways that they felt intense emotion. And I believe some of those guys returned back to the earth and became the very mountains and the planet that we are hanging out on. But that's a story for a different time. So I'm going to wrap things up. I think I figured out what I'm doing with my box set. Like, I don't think I'm going to do a box set anymore. I think I'm just doing the Solfeggio Frequencies albums. Just because I want people to be able to sit in the energy and heal from them. And I feel like if I pitch them directly to people through Kickstarter, that we probably could do really good and it could sell really good. And I'm thinking that I might give some freebies away for other music with it, but buy the Solfeggio Frequency, get a free something else. Anyway, you can sign up on Kickstarter for that. I'm going to probably launch that in the next month or two. It's the full Solfeggio transmission. This is going to be the first one. I'm going to do more and more because I'm doing more albums. But it's healing frequency albums. And they're really good. They're good for you. They're good for your body. It's been impossible for me to make this music prior to the invention of AI because it's hard to get the bands to learn how to tune everything to all the frequencies, and there's a lot of different frequencies, and it's kind of difficult. Most musicians aren't taught anything like that. They don't even know what I'm talking about when I try to talk about this stuff. So I'm recording these songs in healing frequencies to help heal the planet, and I feel like something a lot of my audience here could get behind. Anyway, you go to Kickstarter.com, type in Jesse Blaze, and sign up for that. And then also Sugar and Bones magazine. I'm working on that, and I'm working on my hemp goblins. You can sign up for Sugar and Bones, though, still on Kickstarter right now, alongside the Jesse Blaze box set or whatever it is. And yeah, I do my geek culture entertainment show every Wednesday and Saturday. I've been having fun talking about Fantastic Four and Superman. I haven't missed these past couple weeks. Be talking more about some of those things going on right now. I talked about Colbert last week. Oh yeah, I wanted to recommend actually our audience, since he didn't have an episode last week's Cool's Geek Alive on Colbert is the equivalent of an Everything They Don't Want You to Know episode. It's all about him being a psyop plant, and he is. I highly recommend the latest episode of Cool's Geek Alive. But if you're not into that, you can also check out my music show, All Your Favorite Bands Suck, which we got taken off of Spotify, but everywhere else podcasts are available, we're available. Just go find. I got 55 of my favorite bands so far, and you'll really like it. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the show, and I hope you'll join me again next Monday for another fucking stunning episode of Everything They Don't Want You to Know. Love you. Bye-bye.
There's something in the water. There's something in the air. The proof is all around us. It's not a matter of time. Sure glaze in your eyes. I sense a subtle shift, instincts I can't resist, weary of wolves in disguise. Drunk on a gallon of wine, red as the rivers you ride. Bad apples spoil the punch, bruises and rotten fronts. You've got a thirst you can't hide. There's something in the water, there's something in the air. The proof is all around us, the symptoms are everywhere. There's something in the water, there's something in the air. The proof is all around us. The symptoms are everywhere. Might be a fault of design, a bogus